Welcome to the latest channel update video. Also, it might be getting a little late in the month for this, but Happy New Year to everyone. 2021 then was a bit of a strange year for, well, pretty much everyone. Maybe not as strange as 2020, but a little surreal nonetheless. Now it's time to focus on 2022, and there's a lot of plans for that, some of which I will get to in just a moment. First though, I wanted to thank everyone for their support throughout the previous year. That includes everyone who has ever watched any of my videos, but an especially large thank you to everyone who has helped out via Patreon and YouTube memberships, and of course PayPal as well. Your ongoing financial help there really does make a massive difference to me, and it honestly helps keep this channel going, so once again, thank you so much for that. And if any of you are interested in finding out more about Patreon or YouTube memberships, then please do check out the links in the video description. So in this video, I'll be discussing a few subjects and questions submitted by Patreon and YouTube supporters. It's one of the supporter perks, and it's the ability to submit topics for these videos, and well, we're just about to get into that. So, Jamie asks, with no word yet on a console release, do you think it's possible that Elite Dangerous Odyssey may never arrive on previous gen consoles such as the PlayStation 4? Does that mean that they'll continue to support Horizons for the long term, or do you think that they may do what they did with the Mac version and just drop it altogether? So this really is a hot topic. It's one of those that just keeps coming up again and again. I've addressed it a few times in recent videos, but unfortunately it's one of those questions that pretty much is impossible to answer. Frontier, for the moment, are sticking to their official statement on this, and for the moment they're unwilling to budge even a little on that. Their statement is that development for Odyssey on consoles is currently on hold, whilst they focus their attention on the PC version of the game. Once the PC version is in a good place, Frontier say they will basically give an update on what will be happening with the console version of Odyssey. Now, whilst Frontier haven't said this, it's pretty obvious that the problem with Odyssey on consoles is performance. There are two factors at play here. Firstly, Odyssey is woefully unoptimized even with the recent fixes, although to be perfectly fair that has helped quite a bit for many people, but it's also still got quite a lot of problems. Secondly, the older consoles are fairly underpowered. So these two issues together are almost certainly what is causing Frontier some significant problems with committing to Odyssey for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. That doesn't mean it will never happen though. Although, that said, I'm 50-50 on this one. I wouldn't at all be surprised in the slightest if Frontier come out and say they're unable to deliver Odyssey on older consoles. Equally though, I see there being a decent chance of it arriving at some point, so yeah, kind of hedging my bets there, but honestly I feel Frontier are being so vague here that I feel absolutely anything is possible for the future for Odyssey on consoles. In either event, to address the second part of your question, if for whatever reason Odyssey fails to arrive on consoles, I suspect Frontier will continue to support Horizons with updates. The console version of Elite still has an audience, and I'd be very surprised if Frontier ever fully abandon them. Finally on this subject, I personally feel Frontier's silence on the subject is absolutely ridiculous. Whilst we know they have put console development on hold, I see little reason that they cannot give an update on this. Of course, some people will say, well, the update is that they just need to focus on PC until that's ready and go ahead on consoles, but really, there's got to be more to it than just that. After all, it's been well over 6 months since Odyssey released, so it's high time that there was some sort of update on this, and I think many console users would certainly appreciate that. At any rate, maybe at some point over the next few months, Frontier will finally give an update on this situation. Now, Commander Beast wants to talk about NFTs. They say, with Frontier adding ARCs into Elite Dangerous as an in-game currency, do you think this was Frontier looking at the new metaverses coming out with their own currency and looking to the future of Elite Dangerous into using NFTs like Star Atlas or Troverse, as both would have in-game currency and NFTs? Now, NFTs are a super controversial topic. It's another one of those topics that many gamers get very heated about and hate to even see it discussed. Personally, I really don't like the idea of blockchain games and the related NFTs. I don't think they will bring anything good to gaming. A lot of gamers feel the same way, but some would rather not discuss it at all and get very heated and just don't like videos even discussing the possibility. But personally, I'd rather bring it to the attention of people so that everyone knows exactly what is going on within the gaming industry. So, with that said, there's certainly a lot of small companies and a lot of small groups jumping on the blockchain gaming bandwagon, but a lot of large ones are also jumping on the bandwagon. Square Enix and Ubisoft are forging ahead with plans. Meanwhile, Peter Molyneux made over $50 million in less than a week after announcing his blockchain game Legacy, a game that doesn't even have a demo, by the way. Ultimately, despite the fact that many people don't like the idea of blockchain gaming, it clearly has potential to generate a ton of money. But would Frontier go this route with Elite and their other games? Well, personally, I think not. At least, not yet. And the reason I think they won't go that way just yet is that it will require resources for Frontier to implement, and Frontier's resources already seem to be stretched very thin. In the end, if NFTs do take off, then it's likely most games will ride along with them, Frontier included. For now though, NFT gaming is still something in very early days, so who knows what's going to happen with all of it. Time will tell, I guess. Moving on, Brooks asks, if you could create your perfect game, then what would that game look like? So, well, the answer to that is going to be a very short one, and it's probably going to surprise a lot of people. My perfect game would certainly be a space game, and it would be a game that Star Citizen promises to be. So let me be very clear on this. That's not to say that the game that Star Citizen currently is my perfect game. Rather, I'm saying that my ideal space game would be the game Star Citizen fantasizes that it could potentially be at one remote day in the far future. It's such a complex proposition that CIG have there, it's a dream. But if it were one day, somehow, to be a reality, then it would be the ideal space game for sure. Now, over on YouTube members, there's a brief discussion on Elite Dangerous Odyssey and Grind. Now, I'll briefly touch on this subject, seeing as it has been brought up. That said, I think most people are well aware of my feelings on this topic. I've disliked Elite's Grind ever since the engineers were introduced all the way back in, 2016? And I've made that very clear over the years, and my opinion on that hasn't changed. Elite is a very, very grindy game. Bruce, in the comments section over there, wonders why Frontier seem to be so heavily dependent upon third-party developers. The fact that Elite, for the most part, is 100% dependent upon those tools and websites such as EDDB and Inara, plus many, many more, well, it is a bit of a strange situation, isn't it? Yes, Elite doesn't really have the tools built in it to support its own gameplay. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that can be said about that at this particular point that hasn't already been said. So yes, Elite is very grindy, and yes, Elite doesn't really have the tools to support its own gameplay. So perhaps it's better to not really tread over old ground with that, as I think we're all pretty much aware of the situation with that. Ultimately, I feel that a lot of people want to start looking forwards with Elite rather than backwards, and that's totally understandable. And honestly, I think it is the right approach. But that said, you can't look forwards without looking at the present, and in the present, Elite still has a lot of the same old problems that have plagued it for many years at this point. But unfortunately, some people are very, very sensitive to discussing those issues, and even bringing them up can result in accusations of being too negative. Oh, Obsidian, you're too negative. But that said, I suspect the people who are doing that are a very vocal minority, and most understand that discussing the future of the game requires discussing the present versions of the game. And yes, we all know Frontier are doing their best. They're trying to get Odyssey into a good position, and they've certainly made some very good headway into that. And ultimately, Elite Dangerous is an online game. It is a live service game. And live service games are all about the current content and the future content. So yes, people are obviously going to be looking towards the future. They would be with any other online game after all. So talking about that, this year is certainly going to be a very interesting one for Elite. We know the next big update is focused on fleet carrier interiors, but beyond that, the future for the game is a complete unknown. Conversely, for the other big game that I focus on this channel, Microsoft Flight Simulator, the future is very clear. This year will feature 12 big updates for the game, a few of which are going to be significant. Helicopters and gliders, for example, are both highly anticipated. So Microsoft and Asobo then are extremely willing to discuss the future of the game and reveal their plans for both 2022 as well as some hints for content in 2023. And talking of plans, that brings me to my channel. In 2022 I'll continue to focus very heavily on Microsoft Flight Simulator and Elite, along with numerous other space games. I also plan on bringing DCS World into the mix, but that said, some of my plans will have to wait on my house move. I'm currently living in the southeast of England and will shortly be making a 300-mile move towards the north. I've always loved the countryside, and I think many of you will be well aware of that. So we are going to be moving to the edges of the Yorkshire Moors. This is a pretty large national park here in the UK, lots of amazing countryside, and also an area which has recently been given an International Dark Sky Reserve status. That means light pollution there is at an absolute minimum, which should make for some great stargazing and photography. So yeah, the move is a pretty big deal. Once it's complete, I'll be able to focus on a few other things for this channel. I'll also be expanding onto a second channel where I'll focus on a broader category of games and also discuss the games industry in general. And who knows, maybe there will also be some content that focuses on real-world exploration too. So that brings us to the end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.